Great. Greetings, Doom fans, and welcome to another edition of the Collapse Cafe, here on the Doomstead Diner. I'm talking with a good friend of mine from the diner, Romer. And Romer is currently working out in the oil patch. I'm not sure where, whether it's North Dakota or Montana or what. But it's nice to catch up with him, and we're just going to have a chat and see what comes up. So where are you exactly, Romer?
Uh, Not certain if I would like to put an exact location on it, but
Oh,
I'm out in the Bakken.
okay. So you're doing the shale oil stuff or
Yep,
shale gas. Are you going after gas or oil on your rig?
it's oil. Yeah.
And how many hours a week are you putting in there?
Oh, I don't know, 13 hours a day on average. But if we have to trip out of the hole or something like that, you get up and you put another probably 6 hours in. So it's a lot.
Do you do the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off sort of thing that they do up here on the slope?
No, I mean, if you're working like as a roughneck or one of those types of jobs, you would. But the job I'm doing, there's no rotation. You pretty much, and I'm still in the training phase, so I'm probably going to go like 100 days straight without a day off.
Wow. So precisely what type of job are you training for
It's
and
called,
working in? I know you're an engineer, but
yeah. Well, I'm doing positions measurement while drilling, and what it is you basically build and manage a tool that sits behind the drill bit and gives them the data they need to steer uh, for these
got it.
horizontal wells. So inclination, azimuth, depth, those measurements, along with a few others, gamma, vibration, allows them to navigate. So I basically provide navigational information.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the fracking industry and the ability to get gas out of there. Oh, looks like we're joined by Steve from Virginia. He made it on board there. Um, anyway, uh, the economics of fracking are in big question these days. So, uh, is it? Do you think your wells are profitable, or how much is being funded on debt and so forth? You got any ideas on where this fracking bubble is going?
Um, I haven't really been able to get access to the data to answer that question. But I have asked around in terms of what's it costing to drill these wells, what's a typical production expected to be, um, but that none of that's really giving me a clear picture. I can't get a clear picture from on the ground. The best information I've gotten is just reading some guys who are intelligent analysts on the net, and that picture does not look good. It looks like a lot of these smaller companies are just living off of debt, uh, and so we're producing a lot of oil out of the Bakken. We've increased our production quite a bit, but a lot of them are operating with quite a bit of debt, and that is probably going to come to the surface soon if prices. Well, prices are low enough that they're really not uh, profitable right now, and I think there's probably going to be some corrections soon. But
All right,
I'll
and speak.
to answer properly.
Well, speaking of some of the more intelligent analysts on the net. We just got joined by my friend Steve Ludlam, who also goes by Steve from Virginia, who runs the blog Economic Undertow. And Steve, let me introduce you to Romer. He's a friend of mine from the diner. He's currently working in the Bakken and doing some engineering type of work there. But why don't you give us some of your perspectives on what the debt situation is as far as the oil drilling rigs are concerned there in the shale oil place?
Hi guys, nice to meet you.
Hey,
Can you hear
Steve.
me? Can you hear me, Ari?
Yeah, I hear you. Your kind of your image, your camera is kind of not. It's only focused on the top part of your head, sort of. You might want to try to reposition it so we
That's a part of
can
my.
see the whole Steve. You know.
That's the best part
Uh,
of my head.
yeah, there you go. So that works pretty good. That's a pretty good shot. So anyway, why don't you give us your perspective on what the debt situation is with the fracking companies and when that might shake out over there.
Well, it's not just the fracking companies. Every single industrial business from the very beginning, going back to the 15th century, requires debt. There's no such thing as an industrial business that can pay for itself. So you've got 570 years of industrial businesses, not many in the beginning, but they've expanded. And the amount of debt necessary to pay for them and to retire the old debt as it becomes mature and recover the interest payments, the amount of debt has expanded exponentially. So that today there's hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of debt. I mean, literally 800 trillion, maybe more. So and we're at the point now where it's a questionable issue whether it's possible to borrow enough money just to service the debt. And when you reach that point, that's a Minsky moment. That's when you've got a real problem because you can't retire the debt, you can't service it. And the thing about debt is if the borrowers can't retire the debt or pay the interest on it by borrowing, then the lenders pay. And if the lenders can't pay, then everybody pays.
Well,
Like it or not, we would be in the same situation right now that we are, just because of the accumulated cost, which is what we're talking about, the accumulated cost of all these different kinds of industries, none of which they don't play.
well, the question kind of is who's going to go down first. You know, yeah, I agree with you that the expansion of debt that has gone on began basically with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and it continued to increase over time as we became more and more industrialized, extracted more and more resources out of the earth, and used the debt to do that with. So, you know, eventually, like you often say, Steve, the capital's all been burned up. It's all CO2 up in the atmosphere and can't be repoed. So you got the debt, but you don't have anything but gases in the atmosphere to compensate for that. So
Don't
anyway,
forget the costs.
yeah, the question though is, you know, I mean, somebody's got to go belly up here first, and you know, the house of cards, the cascade failure or whatever, it's got to, you know, start to take off. You know, it's already begun. We can already see the signs of it all through the economy as it's winding down. But you know, what people sort of wait for is that you know, when's that big crash going to come? You know, or are we going to ever see a big crash? Are the geniuses at the Federal Reserve Bank going to be able to keep the funny money flowing and keep the system running in some fashion by manipulating the values in the stock market and all the rest of that? Is it possible to keep this running past the triangle of doom, if you will, which is something a concept you bring up all the time? What do you think about the possibilities of keeping the show rolling for another year, 2 years, whatever?
There's a lot of components to the show. So the only component that really matters is agriculture. So as long as agriculture can keep producing food, then some components are going to keep kicking the can down the road. Everything else is already under stress. Crash is already underway. And the number one crash element, anything that has to do with the military crash. And it's not just the United States, but everywhere else in the world that has some kind of military-related situation. You know, in the Middle East, in Northern Africa, Western Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the militaries, even if they aren't doing anything, they generate tremendous costs, and they can't. I mean, they're more of a dead loss than the other industries. So, places where there's military action, there's huge costs. They can't be made up. And if you don't have economic growth, which we really don't have, then there's no way to make up the cost. There's no way to fix up the damage. Everything becomes counterproductive. You have a breakdown. That's why you have places like Yemen, Somalia, Syria, Libya, you know, countries and you know, along the what we call the you know, the Gulf of Guinea, the area around particularly southwestern Africa, and they have an epidemic of you know, Ebola virus, and it's all a product of military activity that just kind of like sustains itself, and that's already crashing. That's already taking place right now. So the more military action you have, the more likely that you're going to have crashes. And in these countries, yeah, Ukraine is another one. Russia is another one. Russia can't afford to go to war with anybody, but they're engaged in war in Ukraine. And, you know, some of the other areas that they're in, they take a lot of ugly. It's the same thing with China. China is becoming more warlike. So, you know, the more warlike these countries become, the sooner they fall apart.
Well, the amount of warfare that's going on everywhere is pretty, you know, it's pretty astonishing. I mean, it's really World War III underway, just in a kind of fractured sort of way, and you know, new little hot spots popping up every day, new places becoming under more and more stress, and you know, a lot of bellicosity from all ends. Certainly from our end, threats to bomb Syria about this age and all the rest of that. The death from above mem that has failed so many times in the last 30 years is being talked about once again. You did put up a very interesting pie graph, I believe, in your last blog. I think I just published that one, which showed the amount, the size of the military budget relative to all the rest of the services of government that we have. And you know, I myself did not realize that the military budget had ballooned to such an enormous share of our national budget, which of course people think is funded on taxation and so forth, but really is just funded on ever more issuance of debt. They can't possibly tax people enough to pay for all that stuff. You know, I mean, that's stuff that's going on there. Romer, just want to get some of your thoughts on where that's going. Do you know, you're a younger guy, so the war aspect of all this, you know, probably could have a lot more effect on you if and when such things come to the United States, or come to our country directly, or you know, conscription comes as a possibility. Do you think about those things at all?
I do, but quite honestly, you know, I'm more focused on just my own economic survival the last year or two. That's taken most of my surplus energy, and I suspect it's that way for a lot of youth. They aren't even having time to formulate a bigger picture, a world political view or global view, because the stress is placed on you mainly just to get through your job, you know, make enough money, and just keep on chugging along. There's not the environment for people to be forming these deeper views, which paradoxically enough we need more of to fix the situation, but we get less of. We get less of that type of thinking in this environment we're in.
Yeah, the necessities of trying to make your way in the world as it is. I know you graduated college with a substantial amount of debt yourself, and so just a big part of the rat race, if you will, of getting a job that pays enough money to pay the debt and all the rest of that. This type of thing consumes your time, and I know that you went through a period there where meeting those bills was difficult, and eventually led to your going out to work in the oil patch over there, and which I'm glad that you got a job. I mean, a lot of our young people don't have jobs these days, and the unemployment rate continues to increase, although the Bureau of Lies and Statistics, by their numbers, you would think it's going down, but they just drop people off the workforce all the time. And so it seems like the unemployment rate is better than it is. Steve, you want to talk a little bit about what the employment situation is going to be like as we continue on through this period, and what the possibilities are for maybe improving it if the government ever got their act in gear, which we know isn't going to happen. But some thoughts on employment as the industrial system winds down.
Well, I'm not an expert. I usually focus more on the monetary side rather than on employment. But in general, the business of jobs and employment is separated from jobs are a product, just like whatever it is, good comes out of some kind of business. Business is supposed to provide jobs, but they've decided that they don't really need a lot of employees to produce their goods. It's a spiral, because without employees, you don't have customers. Without customers, there's nobody to buy the goods. So businesses are under pressure, and that's an incentive for them to reduce their headcount. So the trend has been less employment over time, and there's really nothing that's going to change that. In fact, all these other economic factors begin to pile up if you're going to have less and less headcount. Then you have more jobs where you work 29 hours a week and you get paid minimum wage, or maybe $1 more than minimum wage. The whole idea is to get as many people as possible doing these kinds of jobs, kind of slave type jobs, do the absolute necessary things that have to be done, and everything else will simply be undone. So, relying on the system for employment is kind of a chimera. And the fact that the government is spending a lot of time dealing with this sort of thing, right? You've got policies that are supposed to encourage employment, but they don't encourage employment. They're just basically a sideshow. And if people are going to become employed, they're going to have to employ themselves. So they're going to have to come up with things to do that are more useful than these near slave jobs at very low wages. But that's all the system is going to provide right now. The other employment is managers, of course. We don't need a lot of managers. And as a business unravels, the need for managers declines even further. I don't know about specific industry. Different industries, obviously, we don't need as many investment bankers as we had, before the 2008 crash. So that headcount is reduced. So that's kind of a typical managerial job. And banking doesn't need as much. You don't need bank managers. So government managers could use a lot less of those. So, the overall trend is reduce these kind of things. So people that have skills, they're going to have to figure out how to make them work together.
Well, sometimes it seems like we don't need any human beings in the loop at all as far as stock market and trading is concerned. It seems to be all run by high-frequency trading programs. All you need is maybe one programmer or two, and then all the rest of the economy and money transactions can be run through computers. But the trend seems to be fewer of those type of jobs, but the ones that are left get paid more and more money all the time, bigger and bigger bonuses, and somehow
It's concentrated.
while it's focused down on just a few people, in control of the levers of money creation and debt creation. I don't know, the Alibaba IPO, I think, went out something like $180 billion, some enormous fund. Thing goes right off the ground, bigger than Google, bigger than Apple, and all the rest of that. And I don't know.
You know what they say,
What do they
Ari?
do? They sell Chinese merchandise or something? I don't know what.
There's no honor among thieves. I mean, most of what's on Wall Street is some kind of criminal scam. So the idea is to cut down the number of hands, cut down the number of crooks that have to share the loot that's generated on Wall Street. So Wall Street's a very simple system. You have the right hand that lends money to the left hand, and the left hand uses the funds to purchase some kind of security, and it's very incestuous. Most of our economy is made up of these kinds of schemes. People are buying and selling securities that they generate themselves with loans that they make to their friends or to their cronies. So, and it all gets written down as economic growth, prosperity. It's just basically it's really silly because it doesn't really affect anything. All these financial claims are redundant, and the bottom line is that they're worthless at the end. So Alibaba is really not worth anything. It's just the whole thing is made up. It's another scam.
Oh, and that's the remarkable part about these IPOs of some of these companies. Poupon, or Groupon is the real name. I call it Poupon, and Facepalm or Facebook. These companies have been formed, and most of them are internet-related companies, and they've been around for 6, 7, 8 years. Never showed a profit in the entire time they've been in existence, and yet when they go out and do the public offering on the thing, all of a sudden investors show up from somewhere and just pitch money at them, hundreds of billions of dollars.
The investors,
it's insane. It's utterly insane.
Like I said earlier, there's no such thing as an industrial firm that actually pays its own way. So all these firms at bottom are this way. And all the firms, a person becomes very wealthy by borrowing his fortune. If you read economics books like Marx and some of the earlier fellows there. So they had this idea that you can multiply your fortune by inventing something and making large numbers of it. It takes too long. So what you do is you build a factory, and you use the factory as collateral for loans, and you use the loans as your fortune. And the idea is to find other people out there who will repay these loans. If you have to repay them yourself, obviously you won't get rich. But if you can get other people to do it, then you can keep the money that you borrow. So all of these Wall Street things that we've been seeing, what you just mentioned, whether it's Alibaba or Facebook or Twitter or some of the internet stocks from the 1990s, I mean, those are just examples. But all big industrial enterprises are the same. And stock market is just one way for these companies, managers, the owners of these companies, to borrow. Once they borrow the money, it's theirs. They can do whatever they want to with it. And the idea is for other people, either follow-on investors or, the fools in the market or big pension funds and whatnot, and also the customers. The idea is to get the customers to retire the debts of the tycoons. So, it's a very important part of the entire cycle. So in order to be successful at a high level, what you have to do is borrow, at least $1 billion. So you have to find somebody. You have to find a friend of yours who works at a big bank like Goldman Sachs, or a venture capitalist, or one of these other, shady characters around the edge of finance to lend you money. And that's, if you watch these companies emerge out of Silicon Valley, that's what they do. It's a process. It starts. It's completely self-feeding. And what it does is that people borrow their money And eventually, when the company go public, then what happens is everybody cashes out, and then you got a bunch of millionaires and billionaires. It's all unearned. It's simply money that's borrowed that other people have to repay. It's a perfect racket. That's capitalism.
I'm sorry about that. I accidentally muted myself.
What did you do?
Well, I hit the mute button periodically here because they got the cappuccino machine running and whatnot. So, it gets a little bit loud. And when I've done a few of these cafes before, I've gotten a few complaints that, why do you do it in a public place like that? Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, first of all, the atmosphere is very nice. It looks like a cafe, right? And, whatnot. So, I put up with the noise, and besides, I get free bandwidth here, which I do not get on my cell phone, which is my only other internet connection. I have to pay by the gigabyte for that.
Where exactly are you?
I am in the Mat-Su Valley of Alaska, Matanuska-Susitna River Valley, and home to Sarah Palin, lives in Wasilla. I'm currently in Palmer. But I did live in Wasilla for a while. This part of Alaska serves pretty much as a bedroom community for the oil industry and the military, which are the main drivers of the Alaska economy. And they are, of course, tied to one another intimately. And as places go to live through in the current situation, it's pretty good. We have so far weathered most of the financial problems since 2008 fairly well. We had a period where there was a lot of houses foreclosed on the market. All 2008, 2009, a lot of that. Since then, where am I? Like I said, I'm in Palmer. This coffee shop.
Nick, where's Nick located?
Oh, where's Nick?
Nick?
I'm in western North Dakota, working on an oil rig in the Bakken.
Okay, so how long have you been there?
I move around rig to rig, but I've been out in North Dakota for coming up on 2 months.
So how long do you think you'll stay out there?
How long do I think the boom will happen out here?
How long do you think you will stay out there?
Oh, I think I might just ride it out until the boom stops, because I need the money, and I don't know if I'll ever get another shot at this amount of money. My goal is to save up enough money to start a farm. Been kind of struggling with that goal for about 9-10 years since I got out of college. Haven't really made much headway, and this is the first job I have had.
So what are you doing there? Who are you working for? You don't have to name the company, but what do you do, and how long? Give me a little background.
I provide downhole navigational information to the drillers. It's called Measurement Wheel Drilling, MWD. I'm an MWD operator is what the position is. So.
Yeah, well, that sounds useful. I mean, certainly, as long as they're drilling holes, they're going to need people to tell them where to go with it.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a big component of the success of horizontal drilling is you need really accurate navigational information, and
particularly the oil pools. The oil pools are only about 5 feet wide, so you got to really.
Yeah.
Not like the old days, you could just drill something in the backyard and it would gush out.
Right. So you're 2 miles down and 2 miles horizontal, and you got to stay within that incredibly tight range. It is rather impressive that we're able to do it.
All right, just let me break in here for a second, because we did have another diner join us, and I just wanted to tell everybody, the fellow on the left of my screen, I don't know if it will be on the left of your screen, is Monster666. He's my regular co-host on the Collapse Cafes, and he is in the UK. And Monster, you want to just say hi? And we've been talking a little bit about employment in situations and whatnot. Why don't you tell the crowd what you're doing? I think you're in the banking business now, and how things are going in the UK.
Yeah, well, like Ari said, I do most of the, I co-host a lot of the podcasts with him, and what was I going to say? Yeah, today I was actually a bit pleasantly surprised. I thought this was just going to be a whole diner affair, and I just thought, well, possibly it'd just be me and Ari. So when I saw a bunch of people on, it's a surprise. But
Yeah, for a while I didn't think it was going to happen at all. I was sitting here for about 30 minutes before Steve finally popped on. No, Romer popped on first, and then Steve popped on. So I'm pleasantly surprised also. I wasn't sure this one was going to go off today. Anyway, sorry for breaking in. Why don't you keep on going?
Yeah, so like Ari said, I just work in the banking sector, just a simple teller or cashier. I don't know how you call it in America, but it's the same role, and I just work in retail banking. Actually, there was a bit of a drama on Sunday because we had to close the branch down because of sewage problems. So that was interesting.
Well, and that's actually the infrastructure part of Collapse is one of the more interesting things. I was reading a little bit while back about a fatberg in London sewer system, which apparently what happens is these disposable wipes that you have that are supposed to degrade when they get flushed really don't degrade, and they trap the fat particles that get washed down the sinks when they're still hot and liquid, and then when it gets into the sewer system, they solidify, and the lint or the wipes all congeal up, and this fatberg thing was like, it was like 100 feet wide and whatnot, and it was completely blocking up one of their biggest parts of the London sewer system, and these problems that are occurring with our complex society and all of these things that we depend on and think, oh, it just works automatically. Well, no, you know how they had to get rid of this fatberg? They had to shoot hot water at it for like 6 weeks straight or something like that in order to melt it down and get the thing to move through the sewer system. Just remarkable how many of these things that we take for granted are in the process of falling apart and breaking down as they go. But another part of infrastructure that we've talked about before is in banking is the necessity for all the computers to keep working and the electricity to keep working. I think you had a period of time at your bank also where the computers went inaccessible. You want to tell that story to the crowd?
Guys, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I have to check out here. Gotta get going. So.
All right, Nick. Well, I'm glad that you stopped in. Glad to hear from the Bakken and what's going on with the drilling. Get a good night's sleep. You're working those long days, so.
I'm working nights. I gotta go in.
Yeah, working those long nights and sleeping.
Hey, guys.
But anyway, get some rest, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
All right, then.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was just going back to what you were saying. In the incident last time, it was a power cut. So basically, it was just simple. The lights went off, your computers went off, and everything went off. So the ATMs weren't working. We have like these deposit machines where you can put your cash and checks in. None of these machines were working, and you couldn't even access anything to do with the customer's record. So you just wonder if it was a prolonged cut and they lost information. You wouldn't even know what was in people's bank accounts.
Well,
Nobody's solved.
the days of passbook savings accounts are pretty much finished. I was reading something about that a while ago. Somebody went into a bank and said, I want to open up a passbook account. And they said, I don't think we even have those anymore. And one wonders, without paper records, where will things go when power cuts come? How will money be moved about? Will it be moved about at all? And Steve, what are some of your thoughts about the attempt to convert back or to reverse engineer, if you will, off of computerized transactions and bit money back to some other forms of currency, paper currency, which is only a very small part of the total amount of money that is actually in circulation these days, or specie, gold, silver. A lot of people believe in gold and silver as a hedge against the monetary crash. And you want to give us some of your thoughts about gold, silver, money, how you get off electronic banking, all that good stuff?
In 25 words or less.
Yeah, start where you want. It's a big
Well,
topic, but it is one that you concern yourself with.
Yeah, it is a big topic. It's really too big. At one level, you have, we've had a change in monetary regime. We don't really have a money regime, in the United States and Western Europe. We don't have a money regime. It's not based on what we usually consider money. It's basically it's a banking regime. Because funds flow from one bank to another bank to another bank to another bank. Of course, it's all done electronic, and nobody really handles money. Very few people, at least in the United States, there's only a small percentage of people do their business in cash. So, it's very dependent on this system that relies on the banks. And the banks that are running it are the same big Wall Street banks that everybody likes to complain about. So it's an easier way to handle enormous amounts of money and the flow of funds, but it's an innovation. We don't really know what all the implications are because it hasn't been around long enough to find out where the defects and vulnerabilities are, and we really don't know what the upper limit potential for it is. We just make assumptions about these sort of things. So there's a lot of big question marks, and one of the problems that I have with it, aside from the fact that you're dependent on banks rather than having the ability to be your own bank, control your own affairs, is that if the system can be compromised by people who are unscrupulous who know how electronic systems work. And what happens is if a bank, for instance, is compromised and all the information is stolen, and then money is stolen, it's basically digits in a system. If it's compromised somehow, then you don't know where the trust is going to begin, and the system becomes compromised, and it really becomes unworkable. If people don't have confidence in it, then they're going to have a hard time using it. They're going to want to do something else. And of course, the big problem that we have is there isn't a lot of currency in circulation. So if everybody wants currency because of some kind of breakdown, then we got a real problem because it would probably take a long period of time. It would take far longer to actually get currency in circulation people could use. And people would want their money right away. So I think that's really a big danger with this, banking system rather than a currency system. And but at the same time, it's fairly robust. I mean, because one of the last things that's going to go is electricity and communication, because there's really nothing to them. It's wires, and computers are commodities, and the little computer I have here is probably more powerful than any of the systems that are used as banks. So it's not hard to get computing power and wires. You can make repairs. It's administrative. It's where the vulnerability is. So, they have electricity in Pakistan. They have electricity in Kenya. They have electricity in Argentina, which is at the edge of economic collapse. So, you do have these things. You probably have it for a while. It's the administrative part of the system is really fun. Now,
Well, the problem is that even though the electrical system is fairly simple, and it also is extremely power consumptive, and it costs money to run these systems, and you have to have working money to be able to afford to buy the coal or buy the gas and so forth in order to be able to keep the electricity on. If you look like places like Greece, for instance, that have more or less been cut off from credit, it becomes impossible for them to then buy enough coal, enough gas, and so forth to keep their electric plants electricity running, and they start to see rolling blackouts, brownouts, etc. And of course, computers are very voltage dependent. So if you it's not just having the power go off, but if your voltage is fluctuating too much, you really cannot run computers.
well, that's it. What you're talking about is an administrative problem. It's like if somebody makes a mistake.
And just to interject, I would say.
Hang on for a good minute, guys. I gotta go get some coffee. You guys keep talking, but I'll be right back.
Because I haven't been working in the banking sector for so long, but I can just say a few things. Like basically, I went to this little training. I wouldn't call it training, but like a meeting, and they were talking about the new technologies that they're going to introduce in our bank. And one of the things that they mentioned, which is an existing one, is cash and check machine. So customers can deposit their cash and their checks into a machine instead of seeing a teller. Well, they're saying, one of the questions raised by customers and employees alike is, why is this machine not introduced into all branches? And one of the answers the people gave, which was the main one, and they didn't say it to customers, is that each machine costs £80,000. So like 80,000, what is that? That's like $120,000 for one machine. So these machines are fairly sophisticated and quite costly, and as you all know, that money is like a proxy to energy. So you can just imagine just assembling this thing is quite pricey. And then they're introducing more technology where they're going to replace the whole counter service where the cashiers stay with computer systems. But this computer is going to weigh 1.5 tons because it has to contain not just the computer, it has to contain a massive vault that contains all the money, doesn't it? And then it has to run on electricity, it's got to have security, and it's got to have a way of detecting counterfeit notes and all these kind of things. It all adds up. And all these things don't just take electricity, but they take a lot of servicing. There's engineers that have to come to service these things. And I can see some scopes for breakdown. So that is.
Well, you also don't have any employees. All these machines replace workers. So instead of having 20 people working at the bank, you have 5 people working at the bank. You say, well, we'll have more branches, but it's just reducing headcount, reduce the number of customers. But it all adds up. There's a snowball effect, and what you're talking about, the overall administrative costs and whatnot. It's a leap of faith. People think, well, we'll try it, we'll see if it works, and we'll take it to the bitter end. There's no guarantees that any of this is going to be, successful even for the banks themselves. So, I don't know how easy it is to make money at the retail bank today. The number of banks in the U.S. has shrunk dramatically since 2008. They've been swallowed up by the bigger banks or gone out of business. So.
There isn't so many in England. Like the big ones, the major ones are HSBC, Barclays, Santander, Lloyds, now Lloyds TSP, and Royal Bank of Scotland. Those are the main ones. You get smaller ones, but really it's just been consolidation, and those are
the same thing here. Almost all the Well, the banking at a lot of levels. It used to be banking was almost entirely local, and there were state banks, and then now you have national banks. The national banks are the same. You have the same 6 big banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America, and then you have super local banks, Fifth Third, and a few others, and then you have the kind of constellation of smaller banks. Of course, one thing you got to keep in mind, all these banks, is that they all have accounts with the bigger banks as well as the Federal Reserve. So any money that they have, they hold overnight, they send it to a corresponding bank, and the corresponding bank is the big 6 Wall Street banks. So essentially, for a good part of every day, customers' deposits are all inside in the custody of the big Wall Street banks, and with their overhang of derivatives and bad loans, billions of dollars in bad loans. So, I mean, at that level, you got that vulnerability. Then you have the administrative vulnerability, like you don't have power, you have a communication breakdown, you have penetration of your bank security, and all of your information is hacked, and these are kind of like administrative problems there. There's just the fact that it's not particularly productive. It doesn't really do any good. I mean, I was at an economics conference last week, and one of the things I kind of toyed about there was the idea of coming up with money that you can't steal. Most of the problem that we have in an economy now is you got the working man's, the labor dollar is indistinguishable from the stolen dollar, and there's been other times, there's other places where you've had money that you can't steal. I think you're going to have a lot of these problems with banking and business as long as it's easy to steal money, because there's so many ways that you can take advantage of the system and basically make crime pay. It's too easy to steal money. So at bottom, that's really the problem with them. We're too greedy. They've got too many criminals, and there's no restraints on the criminals. And it's almost impossible to restrain the criminals now because you make regulations, and the criminals come up with ways to get around it. And you can hang some of the criminals, but you can't hang all of them. That probably just adds to the fun of it. Real kind of like that thrill. So they have to come up with an inherently systemic way that prevents people from stealing money. They have one kind of money for people who work. You have other kind of money for people that want to steal it. And that steal it money would be worthless. So, I mean, they've had theft-proof money in the past. They used to have these South Pacific Islanders. They had these big stone discs that weighed several tons. Nobody could steal it. I mean, it just way too much. It's the same thing. Tally sticks in England. They can't steal it. Money just can't be stolen. Bitcoin. The whole idea of Bitcoin. If you could be your own banker, you could keep your money in your account, which is on a computer, and nobody can really steal it unless they hack into your computer. So, I mean, the idea is kind of orbiting around that. But that's really at bottom, a lot of this banking and finance sort of thing. It has to do with easily stolen dollars, pounds, euros, yen, and whatnot.
Yeah.
One of the things about theft and prevention of theft of money is the idea of making money identifiable. We have serial numbers, if you will, on our dollar bills and our $100 bills and everything. So in theory, every bill is accounted for. But of course, when you're doing transactions, nobody goes around at least at present, goes around recording each of the serial numbers on your money. To record your transactions. However, with the possibilities of electronic money, the ability to track every expenditure and where every dollar goes through the entire system is possible. You can tag it to each purchase, the actual serial number, if you will, of the bit. And this is one of the things that concerns me. On the one hand, you can improve your security by tracking the money and by, if you will, putting a serial number to every transaction and so forth and whatnot. So this improves your security, but at the same time, it takes away your anonymity. It takes away a lot of your freedom when everything, every expense that you do can be tracked so carefully. So there's an upside to the greater security, but there's also a downside. The downside of greater security is the loss of freedom, and I think we see a lot of that throughout our society as people look from trying to make things safer, if you will. But by making them safer, we in fact trap ourselves.
They're not really giving you any security for staff. They're just another reason to control you. So that's really two different things. So.
I think there's a definite push for electronic money. I know certainly the banks, they would love it if people stop using physical cash, not just from the control aspect, but it's just expensive to handle money because you need to store it, there's all the security. We have to have this big security man come in every week to hold our money in and out of the bank. If you had electronic money, you could avoid the need for security and vaults and all that kind of stuff. And it just
that's
on
the thing.
computer.
If you have cash, you're your own banker. You don't need the bank. But the way the system is now, you need the bank just to store your. It's a supposedly uninvolved third party. They're an arbiter. Basically, the whole idea is that they decide who to accept, which bank to accept. So, banks are all about accepting funds transferred from other banks. So nobody actually sees any money. Even if you borrow money, you want to buy a house, the money doesn't go to you. It goes to whoever is selling you the house. And it goes to, they don't see it either. It goes to their bank. So all the money is within this autonomous system. Nobody really has. You depend on others to have access to your own fund. So it's just another. In a way, yes, you can track all these transactions, and that's on the upside. But the downside of it is you're at the mercy of the system. You have no control. There's a lot of uncertainty. All the other monetary aspects are, outside of it. You can actually say that there's a big divide. You have retail banking. You have people take their money to the bank and then they spend it on the goods and services they need. Okay, that's the one level over here. Then you have this big monetary system. Everything runs on exactly the same money. And it runs how, businesses borrow and, tycoons multiply their fortunes and everybody else has to pick the tab. And it's a big, that's over here. So you've got over here, you've got the monetary system, and here you've got the public, doing their, trying to, get something to eat. They want to buy a lonely bowl of chili, so they need, whatever it takes, have it like 2 pounds to go down to Tesco and buy a bowl of chili. And then over here, you got Wall Street guys stealing hundreds of billions of dollars. They don't interface except when they need to take more of your money.
Well, the problems of the two areas of the economy, if you will, the big money people who are in control and the little guy who is just trying to scratch out a living and has to use this money are, a big problem in society. It created a big divide between the rich and the poor, greater disparity in wealth distribution than at any time in history, probably, certainly since the French Revolution. And this divide is causing a lot of havoc and is bound to fracture our country as it has fractured others that are more at the periphery already. These type of problems are going to continue to increase everywhere. Anyway, folks, we've been on quite a while today, and I'm going to wrap up this particular broadcast for the day on the give both Monsta and Steve a chance before we go to talk, make some closing thoughts about money, oil, whatever they want to close up with, and then we're going to try to do our collapse cafes a little bit more regularly. We've been growing on the diner. Our readership and our total circulation has grown enormously over the last year. Our podcasts are becoming quite popular and listened to. So I'm going to try to run these chats a little bit more often, video chats. Also look for some better software because Google, the sound is often not that good, and all the rest of it. Steve's sound today had a little bit of problems, and I'm not sure how that's going to render out. We'll see once the broadcast goes off. But at any rate, it was interesting today to hear from Romer, who's out there working the oil rigs, and I'm glad that Mansa was able to come in and show up from UK, talk about the banking industry and all the rest of that there. So, Steve, let me give it to you first. Just a wrap up. Where do you think things are going in the next few months, and how is our economy going to weather the next few months to year ahead of us? Some thoughts?
I think at bottom, everybody has to prepare for hard times. And, the first step is to think about the possibilities and not make assumptions. The system is going to take care of you, or even take care of itself. Everybody has to get into the habit of thinking independently and not go along with the program. Because the program is bankrupt, and if you invest in the program, you're going to fail along with it. So that's really my message for today: is prepare for hard times and assume that things are going to be more difficult, and you're going to have to improvise. So that's it.
All right. Well, those are good thoughts. Preparing for hard times ahead is something that we concern ourselves with a lot on the diner.
Well, speaking to the choir at Doomstead Diner, everybody over there is already thinking about that. But most people in the United States aren't thinking about it. They're trying to figure out how they're going to get back on the merry-go-round and take another turn at the brass ring. So they need to start.
That's very true. The diners are pretty far out there as far as the idea of preparing for hard times are concerned. Some of us full doomers see the future as pretty much going back to Stone Age technology. So the idea is to be able to adapt yourself to a very low energy input world of the future, and we talk about that with our SUN project, the Sustaining Universal Needs, which you can find at sunforliving.com. It's the nonprofit arm of the diner, if you will, and I hope that people will join us there as well as on the diner, where we discuss all of these topics on a daily basis. Mansa, you want to give us your thoughts for the day as we wrap up this particular broadcast of the Collapse Cafe?
Yeah, I would just echo a lot of the thoughts that Steve just said. I think the most important one is what he said about just thinking for yourselves and not being overly dependent on the opinions of others, even if they claim to be experts. At minimum, just question what people say. It doesn't mean disbelieve, but just question what people say. And I think there will be a period, not just a period, but a sustained period of hardship. So it's best to get prepared, not just physically, mentally as well is important. The concept that you won't get richer in the future is an important one because it goes against the mem of society. You think, okay, I'm going through a hard time, but things will get better. I'll get richer. And if I do this, I can expand my assets. I think this kind of mentality is wrong. You just have to say, what do I actually need and not what I want, and just be satisfied with less. More is less, as they say. So that's what I would say is the most important thing.
I will like to echo those sentiments. I think one of the important things that you have to do as you move forward into the future is think less about getting more money and more about cutting your expenses to the bone until your need for money is as low as is humanly possible to achieve within this society. It's almost impossible to operate completely without money these days, but you can, cut your total expenses down, reduce the consumption of various products, gasoline, for instance, being a primary one. Uh, you're find cheaper ways to feed yourself. Try to grow your own food if possible. Up here in Alaska, we can do a certain amount of subsistence living on hunting and fishing. I know that isn't possible down in the lower 48 in that many places, but it's still possible up here. So you can reduce your need for buying food in the supermarket that way. Reduce your living expenses in terms of how much square footage you live inside. You don't need to live in a 10,000 square foot McMansion. You can live inside a few hundred square feet or 1,000 square feet easily. And this idea that we constantly need to have bigger and larger things, bigger cars, bigger houses, all the rest of that, it's just an overly consumptive society, and that's something that we all need to get away from. With that in mind, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and visit with us. That's all the doom this time until next time, here on the Collapse Cafe.